Welcome back to Are We the Only Ones? I'm Kathy, and today it is the day after, and I think a big turning point. Renee Nicole Good was murdered by an ICE agent that fled the scene. And I feel like she might just be the angel of change that we need to finally stand up against the Trump regime that we are under. I mean, let's just call it the Trump Dictatorship. Like, that's what it is. There were mass protests that just spontaneously formed in 4 big cities. Her murder was literally on her street in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I read reports that she was literally in front of her own house. She is the widow of a veteran. They have a 6-year-old, and then now that 6-year-old is now an orphan and is now under the care of Renee's partner, spouse. But the child is now an orphan. So it's one of those things that, as somebody that's been affected by the Trump administration and its policies, it's hard to watch this train crash because I've already been through one train wreck with this president. And it's to me now, it's just an observation of humanity. How long is it going to take? What will it take? Who will it be that actually turns the ship around? I guess is the best way for me to explain this feeling. Because it's like, a lot of us are aware. We're all sitting here going, this is absolutely insane. And the gaslighting of us being kind of like the sky is falling type of people. I think we've now gotten to the point where we are actually correct. We've been correct. And the gaslighting was real. And now we just need to recognize, what are we going to do as a nation, as a people? Is it really going to be this person that's going to take down the greatest modern democracy in the last 200 years? Is it really going to be this person? Or is it going to be a moment where we have to hit rock bottom in this country? Is this rock bottom? The Epstein files are now moving forward in the House Oversight Committee. There has also been, I guess they've raised the retirement age. So if you're born after 1960, you can't retire until you're 67. There's just a lot of turmoil. ACA actually got extended in an emergency session. So we have a win there. That means Obamacare got extended a little bit longer. It's been a very interesting Christmas to New Year. I actually moved to California from New York. I had a 3-week transitional period from Christmas to New Year's in Disney World. And then literally while the insurrection was happening, we were in transit, heading to the airport, getting on the airplane, flying on the plane, and then landing in LAX. And we literally did not know if the country was going to be operational when we landed. We didn't know if we were going to have a country. We didn't know if the airport was going to be working. We didn't know what was going to happen. And it was interesting because everything maintained itself. And that's what's great about states' rights, individual governments, individual metropolitan cities. That's how we actually, like, our system is really well set up to protect from a single dictator to just seize power. But we're in trouble, guys. We are now at the phase where they can kill anybody. You can be an American, you can be a veteran widow family, you can be, this is all the same person. You can be white, you can be an upstanding citizen, you can be a nice person, you can be a mother, right? This was not a threat. And then they lied. And they keep lying. ICE keeps, there is precedent that ICE lies in testimony. First with that Subway sandwich, right? Do we remember that? They charged the guy of throwing the Subway sandwich. They're perpetual victims, ICE. Can you imagine being a man who feels like they're a victim when you have all the power, the leverage, and you have weapons? That's crazy to feel threatened when you have all the power. That is some weak, cowardly mental behavior. It's literally the concept of people that play video games and then like try to convert and transition into like real life. And so they act big and tough. But then if somebody were to actually raise up with like weapons or something, or if there was like, if all of us actually had like exercised, they would be like, okay, we'll stand down. That's why sometimes the verbal, if you can verbally say the right thing, you can get them to stand down. You know, you're like, you should be on our side. You should be standing with us. I think that every people that say stuff like that, that's the most effective way I've seen, like when people are talking to ICE, or if they're talking to National Guard that's being deployed. Because you have to understand, they're getting a pep talk too, like like that you're sort of the opposing side. And I don't know about the enemy, but like you're the opposition, right? So you have to remind them, like, we're on the same side. Hello. We're all, let me write, we're all Americans. You were like, remember this guy, you were not going to let this man, this buffoon take down our democracy, and you're not going to be the pawn in his game. Like that kind of stuff. You need to say stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, these ICE agents are scared little boys inside. Like, I'm not trying to be patronized, like mean. I'm just saying, like, literally, like, all of us have an inner child inside of us. And if we get triggered and we're scared, like, you just don't know how you're going to react until you're in that moment. And if you're handed a weapon and you're just some sort of, you know, if you haven't had enough therapy to recognize that you're trying to de-escalate the situation, you're not supposed to be escalating the situation. That's like number one. I remember one time I was in DC and we were trying to get a parking space in Target, and we had gotten there first, and this guy tries to steal the space, and he literally comes up. He was a U.S. Marshal, and he comes up and he starts threatening us with his badge. And what he didn't know, he thought we were just like regular civilians. He didn't know that we actually, Marine Corps, you know, at this point we had like 7 years in or something like that. And I worked in engineering, I'd worked in the law too separately. And so I was like, oh, thank you for showing me your badge. I would actually like to take that number down because you should be ashamed of yourself that you would be using that authority to get a parking spot. We're U.S. Marine Corps. How dare you use your badge in such a way? You should be ashamed of yourself. He fucking backed down and walked the fuck away, and I took my spot. But you have to know what to say. Like if, you know, if he had like a certain amount of authority where he's like, because this particular man was not a white man. Okay. He was a person of color. And he was someone that you would think would vote Democrat for sure. And so I can tell you that like it's not surprising to see brown and black people as ICE agents, like doing crazy stuff. Maybe it's because they didn't have power when they were growing up. Maybe it's their way, like they were hazed. And so now to feel this kind of authority is a rush they've never felt before. And they're not mentally trained because, they don't go through like psychology, psychiatry, analysis, which we should be doing. If you're going to let somebody have a weapon as part of their job, they probably should go through like a psych eval, as like a standard. But until we have as a society a standard of mental health care being like 100% for everybody, we don't recognize like that's obvious. You should have that for people to carry weapons. But since we don't have that, and then you have people that get to join ICE with very little guidelines now. There was a guy who was photographed in ICE that had a tattoo with a hate symbol on it. My husband was in the quality control. He was a quality control officer for the United States Marine Corps, stationed out of Garden City for like 2 years. I think he held that post, where he had to literally memorize every single tattoo, and he had to know every single gang tattoo and every single like hate tattoo. And anybody that had those tattoos could not get into the military. Absolutely could not get into the Marine Corps. If you had a tattoo out, this is like the transition time when like you couldn't have a tattoo at all that would show it out of your uniform. Now you can have tattoos. He would be able to write like it's like a waiver. Actually, it's exactly what it's called. It's called a waiver for like tattoos that were not hate crime and not that. So that's also why he had to study all these tattoos. So it's like crazy the idea that ICE would allow that as part of the recruiting process. But then at the same time, it's like if you have to be so hateful, and you have to have no shame when you're going after children and babies and kidnapping people that are just like literally going to work, not actually committing like they're under the guise that they're arresting people that are dangerous to American society. And then what they end up doing is going to like take babies and take like people that are just like selling flowers, selling food, possibly like gardening for 25 years in Beverly Hills was one of those stories. These are people that are actually like trying to join society, and they have a lot of obstacles because they are not fully documented. And it's very difficult. I mean, I know how hard it was to get benefits when I'm a full documented American citizen for 46 and a half years. And sometimes it's hard to get stuff done. So if you don't have documentation, believe me, it is very difficult. And people that don't have documentation, this idea that people go vote, you can't, if you don't have documentation, you won't even want to get a receipt officially done at a Uniqlo, for instance, which is like where I used to work at. Like I had people like, oh no, you have to give my ID. No. Just even for a return. So you're definitely not going to do that for a voting. Like think about it. It's very frustrating to see people that clearly don't know how it actually works trying to come up with like a choose your own adventure version and then see themselves as like these crusaders when actually they are the bad guys. They are the villains. There is no clear, obvious portrayal of how wrong and out of the pocket they are, how egregiously in violation of every single human rights law we know of for an American citizen was on display yesterday. So it is important that we get mad. It is important that we activate ourselves and protest and show up, participate, donate to your constituents or any constituents, any Congress people that you believe can get this job done. Let them know. If you loved AOC, donate to AOC. If you love Ilhan Omar, especially with everything in Minnesota, donate to Ilana Omar. I personally have met her. She was trained at Voter and Lead. I'm credited in her documentary. She's a real one. Okay, the Somali community is under attack by Donald Trump. If he's attacking someone, that means that person's a righteous person. Rosie O'Donnell must be super righteous and super correct for him to attack her to that level. He attacked Stephen Colbert. Oh my God, that man teaches Sunday school for the Catholics. I went to Catholic school, was taught by nuns. I don't teach Sunday school. After all this, that man still has his faith deep rooted. He is a graduate of Dartmouth. Donald Trump had at one point, I think, 4 GPA. I mean, come on. He's upset at anybody that he knows outsmarts him, and that's why he has to say the things he says. Jimmy Kimmel, he knows he is not as smart as Jimmy Kimmel. We're talking about ratings. We're talking about like the way that he would use his own metric, Donald Trump. Oh, I have the best ratings ever. The Kennedy Center has never had lower ticket sales. He's the worst rated president in the history of American presidents. And the level of corruption that we're facing right now is unprecedented. I mean, at this point, I'd rather have a king. This is the crazy thing. Do you recognize that the monarchs in the UK would be a better option for us right now than this particular president? Like, that's bonkers. Right? Think about that. Think about that, seriously. I really think it'd be very interesting, though, if Archie Mountbatten Windsor / Sussex ran for office. Or if a little bit Mountbatten Windsor / Sussex ran for office against a Trump. That would be, I'm telling you, one day that's going to happen. Because history is weird. Pop culture is weird. Life is weird. I hope that, I mean, honestly, Kim Kardashian, I know this is a very like out there thought, but I feel like she would be almost the Pied Piper of those. I feel like she could get Donald Trump to do whatever she would want. If she suggested to him to chill out, I think he would chill out. I really think so. I think we need to use every single intelligent guerrilla warfare arsenal we have, weapon in the female arsenal. He loves beautiful women. We need to lean into that. And perhaps if Kim Kardashian wants to really make a difference, she work on taming him. I mean, literally, she has his ear. She's done criminal justice reform with Donald Trump, the person who paid for the ad in the New York Times for the Central Park Five, these innocent 5 men. So the fact that she got him to do some good things, like, we're not looking at this properly. It's not like embarrassing. I mean, Maduro mocked Trump's dancing, and Trump decided he couldn't take anymore. It was one too many dance mockeries. And it's so much like he ran for office because of that White House Correspondents' Dinner. I have a very special relationship with the White House Correspondents' Dinner because I designed a jacket for Stevie Wonder that he wore to Obama's first White House Correspondents' Dinner. The fact that a White House Correspondents' Dinner under Obama is literally the presidential villain origin story for Donald Trump shows you that making fun of him, as effective as it can be in terms of getting a message to his followers, is also If you know that this is how you light this match that turns into a nuclear bomb, don't light that match, is where I'm at. Maybe not making fun of him is probably the smart way. Maybe we do have to compliment him. Maybe we do have to stroke his ego just to corral him into the stable. You know, he needs to be treated like a man of his age and of his upbringing. He needs to be catered to a certain extent by a certain type of woman. But we need to maintain control because it's a modern era of feminism. Let's be intelligent, ladies. Let's think about this from a much more intelligent perspective of a type of guerrilla warfare where you use your courtesan skills to a certain extent, because in this day and age, there's no judgment on how you get there as long as you recognize that everybody has an equal shot of making the change, being the agent of change, the angel of change, right? Renee Nicole Good is a compilation of a lot of communities. She's a military spouse and widow. She's the mother of a 6-year-old. She's part of the LGBTQ community. She's part of the kindness community. She was a kind person. There has to be a certain amount of indignation that we feel when kind, good people are taken in this way. We cannot let it stand that cowardly men get away with behavior like this. We cannot. Think about it. Tell me what you think. Reflect on all these things. Are we the only ones that think that women in this modern era can use all of our intellectual and female to the upteenth degree of feminism, use all of our skills, our intelligence, our capabilities? I think making fun of this man is not as effective as perhaps looking at this from a different perspective. We need to tame this man. We need to get him to get comfortable and then to reveal everything he's done because he just doesn't think it's wrong, and then realize afterwards. I think we all know, between the Epstein flight logs, all the photos that have come out, all of the case. I mean, when I see these case files and I've read all of the different payouts, like why would Trump pay out all these children if he didn't do it? Little boys and little girls, why would he pay them out if he didn't do it? He won't pay out people that he actually owes money to for construction. Why would he pay out people that he didn't do it? For kids too, why would he be afraid of these little kids? Look how is this why he treats children the way he treats them? Because children are the ones that have been able to take him down? Well, it's something to think about. It's a psychotic behavior. I mean, a normal person does not behave this way. A normal leader wants to protect people, wants to do well, wants to show good leadership. To actually want to be this evil and bad, you got to work really hard to be this bad, right? You have to be hardwired in a way that's like beyond all normalcy, if not going through dementia, which would be his like exit out, to say like, oh, he was going through dementia, and then people with dementia totally are racist, totally get crazy, and totally do stuff like this, act very bigoted. But what does that say about us? That a person with dementia that was clearly full of hate in the process of the way that they became a dictator in their leadership position, how long do we allow this? It is astonishing to me how long this has gone on. Because remember, I'm in observation mode. I am going through anniversaries this month. Anniversary of moving here, which is also insurrection anniversary. anniversary tomorrow of when I lost my first, and then the anniversary of losing my mom to COVID, which also falls on the same day as when the president takes office, whenever it's that year. So January 21st. Heavy. January is always heavy for me. Christmas is always heavy for me. Thanksgiving actually is also heavy for me, because that's the same time as when I got sexually assaulted in Japan by the commanding officer. So, not the commanding officer, but he was just a superior officer. And so, the holidays for me, it's always tough whenever somebody I see in the news has to deal with a tragic death right around the holiday. I know how hard that is, because you have to mark it the same. Something that's joyous for everybody else is also painful for you. All of these pictures are coming up my Facebook memory of flights in Hawaii, fireworks in Hawaii. I go, yeah, I know when I was in Hawaii. That was right before we start to find out when I'm Christmas Day while I'm in Hawaii, worrying about my son having COVID. And then my mom gets COVID. And then my dad gets COVID. And I have to always go through this period, while at the same time mourning anniversaries of the losses of my, December 8th is actually, December 8th to the 9th is the loss of my daughter, who tries me 13. And then January 8th to the 9th, because it starts where I go to the hospital on the 8th, and then the 9th is when the deliveries happen or whatever happens. And so it's very, because you have a duality in life, right? Life has to keep moving. So tonight I'm also taking a friend to the Notebook and the Pantages Theater in Los Angeles. And, most people don't recognize, as far as anyone's concerned, I'm just going out to the theater, hanging out with a friend. Before I get to tomorrow, I'm going to Disneyland, staying at the Disneyland Hotel, taking our kids to Disneyland. They were pulling out of school. Unbeknownst to our kids, it's also the anniversary of their brother. Their brother, they don't really bring it up. They know about it, but they don't know the dates exactly. It's a quiet anniversary that you celebrate sometimes. And for me, Disneyland is good for those types of things for some reason. I can mourn at Disneyland because I have to sort of like chin up at the same time. I think it helps me flood seeing other people being happy, to help reduce the amount of sadness that is happening at that moment for me. And then it's my brother's birthday on Saturday, the 10th, and then it's my husband's birthday on the 30th of January. So it's a very interesting, and then it's my son's, our oldest, birthday in February. So it's just like this waterfall of events that starts to happen. That in a way, when you're mourning, it forces you. So it's like I have a sad thing and then a happy thing, sad thing and happy thing, and it just forces you out of the sadness, which is good. But you are also reminded. So I think for every family out there that's got to go through that has like an empty chair that you always sort of set for the person that's supposed to be there that's not there, that you don't really talk about, but you just have it there, or you set it for someone else. Even sometimes I have that, and it's one of those things where you recognize that every soul has a purpose and a meaning. Even souls that you didn't really know really well, sometimes they just leave a mark on you and you recognize them. So you got to recognize people that have huge impacts on people. What that is, what that energy is, what that vibrational energy is, and what that means. So I saw that the GoFundMe for Renee Nicole Good has surpassed $500,000, which I'm very glad to hear, for that 6-year-old boy that was left to not know. I don't even know if they've told him yet. But it's a serious wrongful death suit that she should be filing, Renee's widow, her partner. the footage in this modern era is so crazy because you can see footage of the actual shooting go down, the incident go down, which I described yesterday on like a very short little mini episode. And then I saw pictures of the interior of the car, and the airbag was deployed, and there was a lot of obvious bodily fluids. So it was very, very sad. And it was like, I didn't have to even see a caption and like, oh, this is, and it was striking to me that you just have these things on social media and that kids can scroll through and they're probably seeing it too. And how much we've changed as a society because we just, is that desensitizing everybody? I mean, it is, or is it informing everybody? It's a lot. It's a lot. I am entering this new year in a different phase because the last year I was doing a lot of sailing on cruises. I did 15 cruises last year. And now I'm into this sort of like nesting period. And it's forcing me to really, obviously, I've been doing the podcast. Obviously, I keep up with the news. I keep up everything. But, you know, I can escape a lot more going on a cruise I felt like every 2 weeks. So, you know, I used to go to Disneyland a lot more. That used to help me escape. I'm going tomorrow. I'll kind of visit that feeling. But it's like I'm being forced to just look at what, you know, our society is, where we're at. I was able to help donate. We met our goal this year at Vote Run Lead. We're trying to raise $1 million, and we hit that goal. And I was glad to be able to contribute. Because it was a rough year for me. It was a rough year. It was a tight year, but you know, the irony of things sometimes is like the things that can cause you to have to learn are also the things that create abundance for you. So that is another lesson going into. This is the year of the snake. Will be ending February 16th. February 17th will be the beginning of the lunar calendar of the year of the horse, which is the year I was born. And the year of the snake is the year of shedding, learning lessons, seeing people for who they are. And then the year of the horse is about, I think, grounding into yourself and then also finding your true, I think, power and nature. And then prosperity generally is what happens with the year of the horse. So with that, I'm going to wish you all a happy new year. And then going into Chinese New Year, it is actually called Chinese New Year. And all other countries, we do call it Chinese New Year, even in Vietnam. We'll call it Vietnamese New Year too, but Lunar New Year is a American term. So it is the lunar calendar that is correct. However, I'm in that phase where I'm in full circle we're on now. So we've educated everybody enough to know all the differences. So to understand fully in depth. That's why there's a Chinatown in every country. That is what helps bring Chinese New Year to every other Asian nation, is because there's usually a Chinatown in that country. Why? Because Chinese influence is very impactful, whether you want to admit or not. China is a very interesting place. So many good people, but a huge wealth gap. So when you have really rich people, they act like assholes. And the way that I would say, like the way that Israelis have been known to behave, like in Thailand, these videos where they come in, they say like, we own everything. Or how like there were definitely like Hasidic Jews that took brownstones from black families in Brooklyn that I had read. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I couldn't understand. How do you have this mentality where you just like come take somebody's house? And it was like, oh, this is what they do in Israel. Interesting. So I learned it so late. But now I see, oh yeah, sometimes Chinese behave. I mean, they'll take your house, but there's a certain entitlement where like there is that I have seen. And so that's why you have the Chinese Taiwanese like incidents. Like you have this strong movie like with Mulan, how like Mulan didn't do well. There's a new live action coming with Rapunzel, and there's always a question with Moana too. Like, you know, whether there it's hard to make a good live action for Disney, especially from the Renaissance films. But Mulan may have been a good one, except for the Chinese issue and the political issues, which were so unexpected. So all these political things, as much as you don't want to like deal with them sometimes, like they will. It's like a trauma that you don't go to therapy for. It will rear its ugly head, whether you want to talk about it or not. And that's what's happening. It's showing up in our entertainment, our politics. It's showing up like Snow White. I don't know if Gal Gadot, you know, because she was Israeli and support. I don't know if that's why it did poorly. It was also just not a good film. So there's that. And then going to films, you want to escape in films now, but is it even fun to go to the theater? People are so out of pocket in the way that people behave in America. So individualistic. Sometimes like we don't recognize that sometimes being peaceful and calm and respectful and having consideration is the best way for an individual to have a good experience. But, you know, we're in a different phase in America right now. We're so individualistic that we think like if anybody says anything to us, it's disrespectful to, how dare you? So there was like a dad at Disneyland in the line of Indiana Jones who was not doing anything wrong. Another dad and his family cut the line. The dad who's not doing anything wrong says, hey, you can't cut the line. And that dad gets knocked in the head and gets 7 stitches. And he doesn't fight back because he doesn't want to get banned. Dad who punches makes a run for it. They haven't been able to find him. I'm going to Disneyland tomorrow. Like, I don't need this. I don't need my kids to see this kind of stuff, right? Like, what is going on? And it's a combination of not just society right now, but also price, right? The price of Disneyland being expensive gets people a little bit riled up because they had spent so much money. They feel some sort of way, right? They got to get, I don't know, an edge out, whatever. So it's an observational thing. You see it in like different places where you can see where people can still congregate together and get along when they are politically different and where they cannot. I still find cruise ships, people can get along. Casinos, people can get along. Disney, usually people can get along. I have to revisit all these things and see where everything is at again. I haven't been to Vegas in a long time and might be going again at some point. I really want to go to Sphere, watch The Wizard of Oz in there, get a new take on it with the original story. So, yeah. Tell me what your feelings are. How do you feel about ICE? How do you feel what happened in Minnesota? How do you feel about public spaces? How do you feel about entertainment? Does it help you escape, or do you feel like it's too much going on? Can you escape in places like Disneyland? Can you escape by going on trips? But when you come back home to reality, how do you feel? How does the news make you feel? How do you feel when you travel and people ask you crazy questions because you're an American? Let me know. All right, until next time.